Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of HazChat, presented by HazMat 101 Consultants. I'm one of your co-hosts, Bob Koshignano, with my other co-host and bestie, Derek Shawman.
Derek Shawman. I am here, and we're going to have a little fun today. Talk about some fun stuff.
We are going to have a little fun,
Keep warm
and
in this.
yeah, it's chilly outside
Yeah,
this morning.
we
It
got a
was like
Florida winter.
I saw, I saw somebody posted a friend of ours. You probably remember him, Jason Riders.
Hmm.
He posted something with snow on it. And so I don't think he's in Florida anymore, at least not for the moment. And I said, oh, yeah, nice. I might go play golf. And I sent him a picture of the weather forecast for the next 5 or 6 days because I'm such an ass. But, and then, don't forget, we got to take, because I know you golf now, right, with your son.
I I go out and lose a lot of balls, but I get out every once in a while.
Okay. Well, it's all good. Um, I, I think it'll almost be time for me to take the driver out and measure. It won't be snow. What will it be? Measurable sunshine is what it's going
Hmm.
to be. For those of you that don't know what time of year this is, well, you will because you'll see the title. It is December episode 2024. So Florida's kind of crazy. Sometimes we're in shorts. Sometimes, when it gets down to 50, we're all bundled up because we're, freezing little whatevers. Not used to that kind of cold crap like you guys are up north. But,
But still
whatevs.
wearing flip flops.
Still wearing flip flops. I will wear a parka, shorts, and a flip flop. I think that's Florida attire, isn't it?
Yeah,
Oh, good God. All right. Well, we've got some new things going on. Got some advertising things that we want to bring to you and share with you, and some good training stuff. So, without further ado, hey, HazChat listeners, looking to boost your skills? Check out respondertraining.com. They've got top-notch responder training and essential tools like their 1-inch propane and CNG flare-off kits, water injection tools, and much more. Train smart, stay safe, and excel in the field. That's respondertraining.com. Enhance your hazmat training with Signal, the most realistic gas detection training on the market. For under $100, you can simulate any detection combination from handheld meters to fixed location monitors, and even confined space scenarios with their universal pump attachment. Signal delivers unlimited range and detector combinations trusted by top teams around the world. Visit signalapp.com or download the app now. Signal, unlimited range, unlimited possibilities. And we're back just like that. So,
amazing movie magic.
it's getting crazy in here now. Oh my goodness gracious. So, this is there's been, especially with the hurricanes, and any of those people, the fellow first responders that are still working those, whether it's Florida, North Carolina, Georgia, I was just kind of up that way doing a quick little trip with the wifey and I, and seeing just along I-75 and 64 and 24, going up through the Tennessee and Virginia, Georgia areas in there. It just blew my mind. I know a good friend of ours, Jason Gore, was showing pictures of propane tanks and I'm not talking little 20 pounders. I'm talking big boys all over the place in North Carolina. So anyway, our hats are off to you guys. Our prayers are with you guys, and speedy recovery to everybody involved. And so it's tough. We deal with hurricanes a lot, so we're a little more accustomed to some of the stuff that's going on. But up there, they're getting absolutely destroyed. So with that being said, we're gonna talk about a propane call that Derek went on, as we say back in the day, uh, when I was still
Way
on the
back.
job, and he was still a worker bee. Um, so this was quite an interesting underground tank situation. Derek, I'll let you go. Go from there.
So this was a unique one to us in the sense that it showed us some of the things where we were lacking in some of our knowledge and training and some of our equipment, and this really was the precipitating factor for us to get a little bit more training in on propane beyond just the run of the mill stuff that we did, and also to evaluate our equipment and look at some other options. So set the stage for this. We responded out to a report of a propane tank that had been hit by a backhoe, and that there was a release. So the first in engine company arrived on scene, and initially they advised that the leak has stopped and we can cancel all units responding. Um, I got on the radio and asked him, I said, well, was there an active leak or did you have an active leak on arrival? And he said, yes, but it stopped. So I was like, all right, we're going to continue the response because as anyone who's dealt with any kind of a compressed gas knows, liquefied compressed gas, we have the potential for what appears to be a stop of the release, but it's really an auto refrigeration effect that is causing there to be a stop or slowdown of it. So we continued on, and when we arrived at this call, first thing to do was met with the homeowner who advised that he had lived in the house for, I want to say, he said, at least 25 years
Jeez.
and was not aware of the fact that this tank even existed.
He was there
He had never
25
used
years
it,
and didn't know it was in the ground.
had
Holy
no
shit.
clue. So brings up kind of that idea of how many abandoned tanks are there sitting buried out there that are just waiting for us to find them. We had the experience in the city with some development into old military area where they were doing doing work on the and grading and everything, and they were finding old ordnance. But this is a whole different thing. We're not. This is kind of a similar concept as a run across old ordnance, but now we're running across forgotten and abandoned propane tanks. So in this picture here, this is actually at the end of the incident when we're removing the tank from the ground. At this point, we're like, you know what, we're here. Let's help the homeowner out. We already have a backhoe here, so let's make life easier. We'll go through some of the unconventional things that we had to do on this call. So they were doing work with the backhoe. The bucket obviously hit the top of that valve assembly, which if you we get a better picture of it here. This is one of those assemblies where it's all in one tree, and it damaged our preferred method of accessing the tank, which would obviously be able to do a liquid draw and make this a much more expeditious operation. That was damaged, and we actually were able to plug it. Don't judge us on the plug; it worked. I know that in normal circumstances, we would not just use a compression plug to try to handle something like this, but we were basically at the end of our options, and this was our way to get something going so we could start reducing that pressure and relieving it. So,
dude, that's some MacGyver shit right there. I mean, that's what hazmat people do. You use what you got.
yeah. Yeah, well, and the big thing was we were all conscious of the fact that it was there and that we needed to remain cognizant of its location and not allow it to become a projectile that injures one of us. So
Right.
we worked around that and worked from the safest vantage points that we could. So the challenge here was not knowing if this tank had product in it, if it was just some residual vapor that was remaining. And as we began our operations, started looking at things, we realized that this was actually approximately a third to halfway full.
Mm-hmm.
So this tank had been sitting in the ground for 25 plus years with almost half a tank there, and now we're trying to take care of the problem that we were called out for.
That's just crazy. That's crazy. All right, so let's back up a little bit here and get to this one.
All right, so this is where we started to get a little bit creative because the problem that we had was we kept freezing over every time we were trying to draw a product off of this. We'd get a decent flow, then it would die back down. We did not have the capabilities for water injection or anything that we have since moved on to, and so our options were very limited based off of the valving that was still intact versus what was damaged. Um, so once we had the leak isolated to where we weren't concerned about free moving propane being in the area, obviously full time air monitoring, making sure we're good. We used the backhoe to excavate beside the tank to expose as much of the tank as possible. One of the discussions that was out there, I think on Facebook, I saw it yesterday in the HazMat 2 group, was about the use of thermal imaging cameras on hazmat calls and whether they're useful or not.
Right.
And I will say that thermal imaging camera was how we determined the fact that this was a third to halfway full of product.
Nice.
So there's the use was there and we used it.
Perfect.
But what you're seeing here, you're probably wondering, no, we're not that low in the water table. What we've done is we've excavated down the side of this tank and we have a 3-inch line that is filling this pit that we've dug here with water. And what we're doing is we're running the pump and we're restricting water flow, intentionally heating up our pump to try to get as warm of water as we can to help expedite how quickly we can get this product moving. We're trying to excite it. We're trying to make it happy and ready to go somewhere else so that we can go back. Because this is right about 30 minutes before dinner when this call came out. And long story short, we had dinner there.
Yeah.
Chief was awesome. He brought dinner out to us because we were there for probably 6 hours.
Wow. Yeah, you know what? Not for nothing. The idea of thinking out of the box to heat up the water and restricting the flow so the pump would actually heat up and heat the water up. I mean, that was a genius idea that I don't think many people would have thought of doing that, to be quite honest.
Well, sometimes it just falls in our lap. We're all looking, going, how can we make this faster? And when you have hungry firefighters, we will find a way to make it faster.
If it's shift change or time to eat, firefighters can part the seas.
Yeah. And I mean, we took advantage of what was there. The backhoe was already there. So we were able to use that to further excavate, open it up. It gave us a good look at the tank. And we also got some good indications of where we were with product and everything as far as basically we ended up floating this tank up and out of that pit.
Yeah, you had talked to me about that. You said that because of the water and then eventually it lifted it up. Is that the way you described it? I'm trying to remember. It's been a day or two.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously propane we know is lighter than water, but we still have the weight of the steel tank.
Right.
So there was all that, and it was all always a little bit buoyant, but as we were removing product, that buoyancy increased.
Right.
And we got to that point that we were able to actually float it up, and it gave us a little bit better access because we could move things around. We were looking for, are there any other maybe access points that we could get a better pull off of this? Obviously, there are the drains on the bottom of the tank that we weren't going to use that because there's no way for us to control that. But it gave us a good look at it. We were able to get a good eye line on the condition of the tank and determine that other than the backhoe hitting it, the tank was structurally sound.
Right. That's awesome. And then we get to the final, which is what you guys were doing, was having to flare it off. Being our older flare off kit, and I'll let you explain from there.
Yeah, so we were flaring off, and this was at the time. I want to say that this call was, geez, I'd have to look back at it. This was 11 years ago, maybe right. 12, and we had this flare system, which was a huge upgrade over the homemade flare that we had before it.
Yeah, it was.
But again, I mean, obviously, it served its purpose. We have since moved to a larger flare that allows us to flow far more product and reduce that time. We found some uses, but we also found some limitations with our flare that we weren't aware of, and also worked with getting some different adapters beyond what we initially got with our flare, which was very basic stuff. The thing that really stuck out to us was with gas lines, we usually have the utility company that we can call. We can call out the
Right.
gas company. When you start talking about propane tanks, and I ran into this a few other times, if it's not identified as being the property of a certain propane company or serviced by a certain propane company,
Yep.
you're very unlikely to find someone who's going to come out and assist
Yeah.
because, fair enough to them, it's a huge liability. They're
Sure.
interacting with something that isn't theirs, and they don't want to invest the cost or take on that liability. So that's where we were with this one. Was we were calling around every propane company to find out, hey, is this in your records? Did you used to service this? And we got no response as far as finding someone who serviced it.
Weird.
That may be because maybe that company didn't exist anymore, or maybe they answered the phone and they're like, you know what? We
Don't
can just
seem to
say
recall
no
that. Don't know.
and not worry about it. But so this is kind of right about the time that we kind of set up camp and realized we're going to be here for a little while, and we actually had we have camping chairs on HazMat one that we would use during donning and doffing for PPE, and we set those camping chairs up in the homeowner's front yard, and the homeowner brought us out some water, and the chief dropped off food, and we
Dude, you guys had like an outdoor camping thing. You got your fire.
yeah.
All you need is some marshmallows and crackers and chocolate to do s'mores.
Yeah, we weren't running other calls. We were just kind
Yeah.
of there.
Weird. You weren't having to
And
run on the
burning this
lovely
off.
people of downtown Orlando.
Yeah, and I know the picture gives the impression that we're lighting that tree on fire. Obviously, that's just a little bit of depth perception issues. The flare
Right.
is far enough from the tree that we weren't creating any concerns. But I
Yeah.
would also say that again, the use of a thermal imaging camera. If you have not implemented using a thermal imaging camera every time you use your flare, I highly recommend you start doing it.
That's a very good point because you're able to see where that radiant heat is going. And hey, we might want to relocate that thing. That's a very, very good point.
Absolutely. And you'll also be able to see, you know, where your liquid, if you're burning liquid, if you're where your liquid is in your lines, all those things. It gives you a lot to look at and helps you kind of understand where in the operation you are. When you start to see that those changes in temperatures, you know that okay, we're starting to exhaust some of our product, and you know you see that change in your flare. You see all those
Yeah.
different things, and it, you know it brought up some things that some questions that we had as far as our flare system as to we own the flare, but we really didn't know like what it is and isn't rated for. We were just like, attach the propane, burn propane. And
Flip a valve, here you go. Hey kid, like
you
this
know,
thing over here.
sometimes firefighters are a little bit simplistic, and this really caused us to dig into and learn a lot more about propane flaring, and that led to some changes in our equipment, changes in our operation,
Yeah.
and you know, gave us some new tools in the toolbox too. Because, like I said, we didn't have water injection as an option, but I believe Bob's got some pictures here of something that we did that's kind of like a water injection, but not.
I don't know that that's here with that. No, it is not.
All right, so I'll just as we got the product down to where we just had some residual vapor. At that point, what we did was we actually devalved this tank, and after devalving the tank, removing the assembly there, we just flowed water into the tank
And just had
and
it.
flushed it out.
Yeah.
Yep. And the idea of that was obviously we didn't want the nuisance odor there for the homeowner because we knew that that would probably cause neighbors to call us back out. But it also was a service for the homeowner because once we removed the valving and we flushed the tank out to where there was no residual vapor that could be in there, and it made it possible for them to have it hauled away as scrap
Perfect.
and much easier for them to get that hauled away versus if there were still valves there and things like that. You might have companies saying, well, we're not going to take it because this is potentially containing a hazardous material and it's under pressure. We can't verify. So
Right.
we wanted to do everything we could to inert that container as possible. Obviously, mercaptan has a high a high staying power, and you're always going to have that odor there. But by flushing it out, we really reduced what was left there.
Yeah, and it's probably a smoker behind a firehouse right now somewhere.
Probably, I wouldn't say yes or no.
Yeah, you know, you bring up a good point about getting these kits, and we have the department has upgraded to a different company, a bigger, the 1 inch Dragon Slayer uh, flare off system by Responder Training. And the reason why I mentioned that in them is because we didn't know, you know, the old saying, we didn't know what we didn't know. And we learned, as Derek mentioned, all the different valves. I mean, because initially the stuff we got was like, hey, here. And we had a couple guys that knew a little bit and a couple other guys that knew a little bit more. But we got some newer equipment, updated equipment. And as Derek said, the valving systems and stuff that now they can do water injection. The only water injection capability we had was an old style coupling that was put on before I was on the team. So, you know, I don't even think it was before the horses, for the back of a bobtail. You know, if you had a bobtail that was leaking, that was really the only type of water ejection system that we had. And I think we trained on it twice.
Yeah.
So this has brought it to another level. And I mean, all the good points of using the tick. And here's something everybody forgets about too. A bottle of soapy water. You know, you smell the mercaptan. Take that bottle of soapy water and see. That might just be a little bubble coming up, and you don't have the major leak. I mean, this was obviously a different scenario, but I tried to tell, especially in our ops review class, that you know these guys are taking a 4-gas meter to a gas odor call, and I'm like, "What about soapy water?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "Man, you will find a gas leak with a bottle of soapy water before your meter even activates." You know, in some instances, anyway.
It's a liquid FID.
Dude, we should totally. Ooh, I got a marketing idea. HazMat water, HazMat
Yes.
101 water for your
We
gas
make the
tanks
bottle yellow. We can charge $100.
with a little smiley logo on it. Boom, right there. Done. All right. If anybody
Yeah,
comes
but
up with that, we want 10%.
the other thing I would say with this is, you know, I think that the hazmat world has gotten better about this,
Yeah.
but we can always strive to do more. Is we have a tendency to get equipment and not get the training.
Yeah.
And regardless of what equipment you have, you may have a different flare than the neighboring department, whatever. The concepts are pretty much the same.
Right.
So try to get that training. If a neighboring agency has a flare and they're going to do training on it, get that training. But really, if you can get training from the manufacturer or the provider,
Yeah.
that has a lot of value, because the training that you're going to get in house is going to be training that has gone through some generations of being passed down.
Hand me down
And
training.
yeah, and things change. There's always going to be changes. There's different valves that are now available. There's some movement away from the Acme valves to some different valves. Like so, you know, you want to be up on what the current thing is, not what was taught 15 years ago. And
Right.
when you're getting that new product, invest in the training side of it as well. Have those vendors come out. Most vendors of any product, they offer a training program. Obviously, you want to stay away from the ones that are a sales pitch to get you to buy the widgets and the doodads that attach to it. But
Right.
sometimes those widgets and doodads are actually important,
Yeah.
which we found that, hey, there's a lot of valves that we should have.
Yeah.
And also engage with, especially for flare offs, for propane or anything like that. engage with your local propane distributors,
Mhm.
because most of them have some knowledge of flaring, or they have a contractor that they use. Get together and work with them, because the people who are out there interacting with these devices on the regular
Oh
are
yeah.
going to be way more competent in, hey, you need this valve, you need this adapter, you should try this, never do this, because that's the thing that we forget. There are things that we should not do.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, Sometimes the best of ideas can have the worst of consequences, and you
Absolutely.
don't know until you've been trained on it. And doing anything without some sort of formal documented training, we open that door to liability. We open that door to hurting people,
Yep.
and we all want to come to work, do our job, and go home.
Yep.
So
And and
train.
and I would also add to that, if you don't have this system, know who does. Because honestly, not everybody's going to need this system. It just depends where you're at, what kind of response area you have. But then again, you may need two, three, four, or five of these systems. But the key is to know where you can get them. Let's say you have one, but you've got four tanks, or you've got two bobtails to flare. Whatever the situation is, you need more, or you need one. What departments around you have them? Reach out to them, set up some training with them, get with them about being an emergency mutual aid response kind of agreement thing, whatever it is you call it, and have that plan now, not trying to figure out that crap at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's good stuff. And it brings us back. You brought a good point. Before we wrap it up, is that don't just get a piece of equipment and go okay and put it in the cabinet or on the rig. I mean, before it goes on the rig, everybody should be training on it. I mean, it should go, depending what kind of shifts you work. We work 24 on 48. Well, I used to 24 on 48 off. It would need to go through all three shifts before we put a piece of equipment on a truck. That was our standard
Mm-hmm.
operating procedure. Because you don't want something, oh, hey, that's cool. Let's try it on a call. No, that's not the time to be doing that. So, at any rate, just real quickly, we want to talk about some social media sites. Obviously, our YouTube channel, which has more great HazChat shows like this, um, and our Facebook page. Remember to like and subscribe to YouTube, and we are now on all the podcast channels. So that's something new for us, which is kind of cool. Uh, Obviously, you're watching this, you're seeing it on YouTube, and we'll be putting it out on all the other podcast channels that you can think of. So they'll be there for you to, if you watch us now and you want to listen to some of the others, check it out on the major podcast apps. Derek, you got any final words of wisdom?
No, no, I think that, like I said, we hit on it, is evaluate what you've got and make sure that you remain trained on it, and engage with those people that deal with these products on a regular basis, and take advantage of their knowledge and their experience. But definitely get out and get that training from someone who has expertise.
Yep, absolutely. All right. Well, as always, we will see you. Oh, I almost forgot. I got to drop another little nugget. I forgot to do it. Jeez. We
Mm-hmm.
will be
See,
starting after the first. See, you're supposed to remind me of this stuff. We will be starting after the first of the year, bi-weekly show. The first show we're going to drop, as this one, first of every month, is us two knuckleheads talking and whatever. And then the third week of the month, which should be an interview with different people in the community of first response. And yeah, we'll see how it goes. So until next year, I get to say that, right? Because this is the December episode.
oh wow,
Yeah,
yeah,
didn't even
geez, this
talk,
year's gone by
right?
fast.
No kidding.
Ugh.
Until next year, uh, we'll see you then. Have a healthy, happy, and safe holiday season. And don't overindulge unresponsibly.